God message for you today. You won't be able to sleep today without knowing what will happen to your family. The night was quiet, unnaturally so. The wind outside didn't rustle the trees, and the usual creaking of the old house seemed to have stopped entirely. As Sam lay in bed, staring at the dark ceiling, the ominous words replayed in his mind. The message had been clear. You won't be able to sleep today without knowing what will happen to your family. Sam had received the anonymous text just after dinner. It had come from an unknown number, but there was something chilling about the way it was written, as if it wasn't just a threat, but a promise. He had tried to shake off the unease, telling himself it was probably a prank. But now, hours later, with the house drenched in darkness, his nerves felt raw. His wife, Jane, lay next to him, her breathing deep and steady. She didn't know about the message. He hadn't told her. Sam didn't want to alarm her, especially when he wasn't sure what it meant. But his thoughts kept spiraling into worst-case scenarios. What if something really was going to happen? What if the person who sent the message knew something he didn't? Unable to bear the stillness any longer, Sam slipped out of bed quietly, making his way to the living room. He checked the locks on all the doors, peered out every window, and made sure the alarm system was armed. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but the feeling of dread gnawed at him. Just as he sat down on the couch, his phone buzzed again. Heart racing, he grabbed it off the coffee table. You better not take this lightly. Sam's blood ran cold. The person, whoever they were, was watching. He looked around, scanning the shadows in the corners of the room, expecting to see a pair of eyes staring back at him. He rushed back to the bedroom, checking on his children, sleeping peacefully in their rooms. Do I call the police? He wondered. But what would he tell them? A creepy text from an unknown number? There was no proof of anything. Still, something deep inside him told him this was more than a prank. Suddenly, there was a soft knock on the front door. The sound was almost too faint to hear, but in the dead of night, it echoed like thunder in Sam's ears. His heart pounded as he stood frozen in the hallway, trying to decide what to do. The knock came again, louder this time. Sam's breath quickened as the knock echoed through the silent house. He glanced back toward the bedrooms, where his family slept peacefully, oblivious to the growing sense of danger. Who would be knocking at this hour? His mind raced with possibilities. Could it be the person who sent the messages? Were they already here? Slowly, he crept to the front door, grabbing the baseball bat he kept in the hallway closet. His palms were sweaty as he tightened his grip around the handle, trying to control the fear rising in his chest. The knock came again, more insistent this time. Sam swallowed hard, peering through the peephole. At first, all he saw was darkness. But as his eyes adjusted, he noticed a figure standing just beyond the porch light's reach. The silhouette was tall and motionless. "Don't open the door!" his instincts screamed. But something else urged him to confront whoever was out there. He didn't want this threat hanging over his family any longer. Summoning every ounce of courage, Sam unlocked the deadbolt and cracked the door open, keeping the chain latch fastened. "Who is it?" he asked, his voice trembling despite his attempt to sound firm. A deep voice responded, low and cold. "I told you, Sam. You won't be able to sleep tonight unless you know the truth." Sam's heart skipped a beat. "Who are you? What do you want?" The figure stepped into the light, revealing a man in a dark coat, his face shadowed by the brim of a hat. He tilted his head slightly as if studying Sam's reaction. "You've been warned, but warnings have a purpose. You have a choice to make, Sam, and you won't rest until you make it." Sam's grip on the bat tightened. "What are you talking about? What choice?" The man took a step closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I've seen what happens if you don't act. Your family, they're in danger. But it's not from me. It's from something you can't see yet." Sam's mind raced. He didn't know whether to believe this stranger or slam the door in his face. "Why should I trust you?" "You don't have to trust me," the man replied calmly. "But if you ignore me, the consequences will follow. You'll see. Everything will unravel starting tonight." Before Sam could ask another question, the man turned and walked away, disappearing into the darkness as if he had never been there at all. Sam slammed the door shut, locking it behind him. He paced the hallway, his mind swirling with confusion and fear. What does he mean? What's going to happen to my family? Suddenly, a loud crash came from upstairs. Sam's heart leaped into his throat. He rushed up the stairs, taking them two at a time, adrenaline pumping through his veins. Bursting into the master bedroom, he found Jane sitting up in bed, wide-eyed and startled. "What was that?" she whispered, her voice shaky. Sam was about to respond when another crash echoed through the house, this time from their children's room. Without hesitation, Sam sprinted toward the door. He flung it open and froze. There, standing by his daughter's bed, was a figure cloaked in shadow, its face twisted into something inhuman. It turned slowly, locking eyes with Sam. A cold, malicious smile crept across its face as it whispered, "The choice has been made." The room suddenly grew unbearably cold, and everything went black. Sam woke with a start, his body drenched in cold sweat. For a moment he couldn't tell if he was awake or still trapped in the nightmare. His heart raced as he scanned the room. The shadowy figure was gone, and the room was still. The soft hum of the air conditioner and the familiar warmth of his home slowly brought him back to reality. He rubbed his eyes, trying to shake off the terrifying vision. Was it just a dream? But the dread clung to him like a second skin. Sam glanced at his daughter's bed. She was still fast asleep, her small form curled up under the blankets, peaceful and unaware of the darkness he had just seen. He backed out of the room, closing the door gently. His hands were shaking, his thoughts racing. That man, what he said, was it connected to this? He couldn't ignore the fear gnawing at him. Something was wrong, and deep down he knew it wasn't just in his head. Sam hurried back to the bedroom where Jane was sitting up, eyes wide with concern. "Sam, what's going on? I heard a crash. Is everything okay?" I don't know," he stammered, running his hands through his hair. I thought I saw someone in... He paused, swallowing the panic rising in his throat. In our daughter's room. Jane's face paled. What do you mean? Did someone break in? I'm not sure, Sam replied, still trying to make sense of everything. There was this man. He came to the door, warned me about something happening to the family, and then there was this thing in her room. Sam, you're scaring me, Jane whispered. She threw back the covers and stood, gripping his arm. We need to check the house again. Call the police. But Sam hesitated. He had checked everything. The doors were locked, the alarm was on, and no one could have gotten in. Yet the fear still gnawed at him. He felt trapped between reality and some unseen force at play. Let's check on the kids again first, he said, his voice tense. They rushed back to the children's rooms. Everything appeared normal. Their son was fast asleep and their daughter hadn't stirred. But as they turned to leave, Sam noticed something strange. A chill ran down his spine as his eyes locked onto the small black handprint on the wall by his daughter's bed. It was smeared as though someone or something had pressed it there recently. Jane noticed it too and gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Sam, that wasn't there before, she whispered. Sam stood frozen, staring at the handprint. It was too small to belong to an adult, but too twisted and unnatural to be from either of their children. The man's words rang in his ears. The choice has been made. What does this mean? Jane asked, her voice trembling. I don't know, Sam whispered. But I think, whatever this is, it's not over. Suddenly the lights flickered, plunging the house into darkness. Jane grabbed Sam's arm, panic overtaking her. What's happening, Sam? The air in the room seemed to grow heavier, as if something unseen was suffocating the very space around them. Sam fumbled for his phone, the only light source now, and his heart sank when he saw another message flash across the screen. It's already begun. You can't run from it. The temperature in the room plummeted, and a low, guttural growl echoed from the hallway. Sam and Jane stood frozen, fear choking them as the darkness seemed to close in, alive with a presence they couldn't see but could feel in their bones. Sam's mind raced, desperate for answers. The man said I had a choice, but I don't know what choice I'm supposed to make. The growl grew louder, closer, and then a voice, cold and mocking, whispered from the shadows. You don't need to choose, Sam. It's too late. The voice echoed in the dark, and Sam's heart hammered in his chest. He turned toward Jane, who was gripping his arm so tightly it hurt, her face pale with terror. He had no idea what to do next, but he knew they had to get out of the house. Jane, we have to leave, Sam whispered, trying to stay calm. But the kids, she protested, glancing toward their children's rooms, her voice breaking. We'll grab them, but we need to go now. Sam rushed into his daughter's room first, scooping her into his arms. She stirred slightly but remained asleep, her small arms dangling over his shoulders. Jane followed quickly behind him, grabbing their son, who woke with a groggy mumble. Dad, what's going on? He asked, rubbing his eyes. Everything's okay, buddy, Sam said, forcing a calmness into his voice that he didn't feel. "We just need to go for a drive, okay?" He motioned to Jane to follow, and they hurried toward the front door. Sam could still feel the weight of something ominous pressing in around them, and the low growl that had echoed earlier seemed to vibrate through the very walls of the house. Just as they reached the door, it slammed shut with a force that shook the whole house. Jane screamed, clutching their son tighter. Sam whirled around, his eyes darting wildly around the room. The air was thick with a cold, unnatural presence. The shadows seemed to ripple, and from them the figure emerged once more, the same one that had been in their daughter's room. Only now its form was more defined, taller, and its features grotesque and twisted. "You can't leave," it hissed, its voice like nails scraping against metal. "The choice is yours to make, Sam, but time is running out." Sam felt his legs go weak. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. "What choice?" he shouted, the desperation clear in his voice. "What do you want from me?" The figure's cold, dead eyes locked on Sam's. To sacrifice one or lose them all. Sam's blood froze. The words cut through him like a knife. "Sacrifice," he whispered, horrified. "No, I won't do that." "You will," the figure whispered, stepping closer, "or they all die. You have until dawn." Jane's face crumpled in fear, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Sam, no, no, this can't be happening." Sam stood paralyzed, his mind racing. How can I choose? It felt like a nightmare, but he knew deep down that it was real. He had seen the handprint, felt the presence, heard the voice. He could sense that this was no ordinary threat. The figure faded back into the shadows, its cold voice lingering in the air. "Dawn comes soon, Sam. Don't wait too long." And then, just like that, it was gone. The room was still again, though the suffocating darkness remained. Sam turned to Jane, his eyes wide with terror. "What do we do?" Jane shook her head, sobbing. "We can't do this, Sam. We can't choose." "I don't know if we have a choice," Sam whispered, his heart breaking. "But I swear I'll find a way. I won't let anything happen to any of you." He glanced at the clock. It was 3 a.m. They had 3 hours until dawn. 3 hours to make an impossible decision, or to find another way out. With his family gathered around him, Sam realized there was no time left to waste. They had to fight back against whatever was haunting them, even if it meant risking everything. But in the pit of his stomach, Sam knew the figure's words were true. To sacrifice one or lose them all. Sam's mind spun as the gravity of the situation settled on him. To sacrifice one or lose them all. He could barely think, his chest tight with the weight of impossible choices. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, each second echoing like a countdown to doom. But no matter how desperate the situation, Sam refused to give up. There had to be another way, something he was missing. He turned to Jane, whose tear-streaked face reflected the same horror and helplessness he felt. "I'm not going to let that thing take any of us," Sam said, his voice hardening with resolve. "We're going to figure this out." Jane nodded, wiping her face. "What if we try to talk to it again? Maybe it's lying. Maybe this whole thing is some twisted game." Sam didn't think the creature was lying. He had felt its malice, its hunger for destruction, but he also couldn't ignore the fact that it seemed bound by some rule, some condition. That meant it wasn't all-powerful. It was playing within certain limits. "We'll fight it," Sam said, more to himself than anyone else. "We'll find a way to stop it, but first we need to figure out what we're dealing with." Suddenly, Sam remembered the man from earlier, the one who had knocked on the door. He knew something. He warned me. Sam pulled out his phone, scrolling back through the messages from the mysterious number. He stopped at the first message. "You won't be able to sleep tonight without knowing what will happen to your family." A new determination sparked in him. Whoever had sent that message had known this was coming. They might even know how to stop it. Sam dialed the number from the text, his hands shaking with urgency. The phone rang once, then twice, before a voice picked up on the other end. "You're running out of time, Sam," the man's voice said, as cold and emotionless as it had been at the door. Sam gripped the phone tighter, desperation creeping into his voice. "What's happening to my family? What is that thing? And what do you mean I have to choose?" The man paused before answering. "It's an ancient curse passed down through families, a dark force bound by bloodlines. You've been marked. Every few generations it comes back to claim its price." Sam's blood ran cold. "Claim its price? What price?" "The life of one family member in exchange for sparing the rest. It's been this way for centuries. Your ancestors made a deal long ago, and now it's come for you." Sam's knees buckled as the truth hit him like a tidal wave. This wasn't just some random attack. His family was tied to something far darker than he had ever imagined. "There's no other way?" Sam asked, his voice breaking. "I can't just let this happen. There has to be something I can do." "There is no easy way out," the man replied. "You can fight it, but the curse is strong. The shadow won't stop until it takes what it's owed. Your only chance is to break the cycle, but to do that, you need to find its source, the deal that was made. And you only have until dawn." Sam's mind raced. "How? How do I find the source?" "You need to go back to where it all started," the man said. "Your family's history. It's hidden in the past, buried deep. But be warned. Time is running out. The curse grows stronger as dawn approaches." The line went dead. Sam stood there, phone in hand, trying to process everything. A curse? A deal made by his ancestors? His whole life had been turned upside down in a matter of hours, and now he was supposed to break an ancient curse with just a few hours left to spare? Jane grabbed his arm. "What did he say, Sam?" Sam turned to her, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "It's a curse, a deal made by my ancestors. It comes back every few generations to claim a life. But there's a way to stop it. We need to find the source of the curse, the deal that was made." Jane's eyes widened. "But how? We don't know anything about your family's history." Sam thought for a moment. His father had passed away when Sam was young, but he remembered his grandfather always talking about the old family estate, a place that had been abandoned for years. He hadn't thought about it in a long time, but it might hold the answers they needed. "We need to go to the old estate," Sam said. "It's where it all started. Maybe there's something there, something that can help us break the curse." Jane nodded, determined. "Then let's go." Sam quickly gathered their kids, who were still half asleep and confused, and ushered everyone into the car. As they pulled out of the driveway and sped down the dark, empty roads, Sam couldn't shake the feeling that time was slipping away faster than the ticking clock could measure. They reached the family estate just before 4 a.m. The old house loomed before them, its windows dark and lifeless. Sam hadn't been here since he was a boy, but the sight of the crumbling stone walls and overgrown yard sent chills down his spine. "This is it," Sam whispered, stepping out of the car. "This is where we'll find our answers." As they made their way toward the front door, Sam felt the weight of the curse pressing down on him, the clock ticking louder in his ears. Dawn was coming, and so was the final choice. Sam approached the old estate with a sense of dread and urgency, his flashlight casting long shadows on the crumbling stone walls. The house had been abandoned for years, but it was still a part of his family's history, a place filled with secrets. He felt a deep chill as they stepped inside, the air thick with the weight of the past. Jane held the children close, her eyes scanning the eerie hallways. "What are we looking for, Sam?" "I don't know," he admitted, his voice shaky. "Something that can explain this curse, how it started. There has to be something here." They began searching the rooms, their footsteps echoing through the empty halls. Dust covered the furniture, and the once grand interior had fallen into disrepair. Sam's mind raced as he sifted through old books and documents, desperate to find anything that could lead them to the source of the curse. Time was running out, and the minutes seemed to slip away faster with every passing moment. In the corner of the main room, Sam spotted a large portrait hanging crookedly on the wall. It was a painting of his great-great-grandfather, a stern-looking man with cold eyes. Beneath the portrait, a small plaque read, "Ambrose Hawthorne, 1883. "Ambrose," Sam whispered. "He's the one who made the deal." Sam remembered vague stories his grandfather had told him about Ambrose, a man who had been powerful and feared in his time. But no one ever talked about the darker side of his life. Sam felt a knot form in his stomach. This was the man who had condemned their family. Suddenly, Jane called out from another room, "Sam, I think I found something." Sam rushed over to her. She was standing in front of a large, weathered trunk, the lock rusted and barely holding it shut. It was hidden behind some old furniture. "Do you think this could be it?" Sam knelt down, forcing the lock open with a heavy pull. Inside were old, yellowed papers, documents that looked as though they hadn't been touched in decades. Among them was a thick, leather-bound journal. Sam's heart raced as he opened it to the first page. The handwriting was old and ornate, but clearly legible. It was Ambrose Hawthorne's journal, dated 1883, the year of the deal. Sam skimmed through the pages, the entries chronicling Ambrose's rise to power, his dealings with dark forces, and finally, his desperation to protect his family's wealth and legacy at any cost. It wasn't until Sam reached the final entries that he found the heart of the curse. Ambrose had made a pact with a dark entity, a shadow that promised him immense power and fortune. In exchange, the entity demanded a sacrifice, a life from his bloodline every few generations. Ambrose, blinded by greed, had agreed, and the curse had been sealed. Sam's stomach turned as he read the final chilling lines. The shadow will come for what it's owed. One life to save the many, but the deal can be undone only if the truth is revealed and the blood of the one who made the deal is spilled. Sam's hands trembled as he closed the journal. "He condemned us all," Sam whispered. "He did this to protect himself, to save his wealth. And now—" Jane's voice shook as she read over his shoulder. "The blood of the one who made the deal. What does that mean? Ambrose is long dead." "I think it means his descendant," Sam said quietly, realization dawning on him. The curse can only be broken if the bloodline that made the deal is cut off. Jane's eyes widened in horror. "Sam, no, it can't mean it's me, Jane," Sam said, his voice filled with grim acceptance. "I'm the one who has to die to break the curse." The weight of the truth crashed down on them both. Jane's face crumpled in tears, her hands shaking as she clung to Sam. "No, there has to be another way. You can't—" "I don't think there is," Sam said, his voice trembling. "The curse was sealed with a blood deal, and the only way to stop it is to end the bloodline that started it. Ambrose's blood runs through me." Jane collapsed into him, sobbing uncontrollably. Sam's heart broke as he held her. He wanted nothing more than to protect his family, but he knew the shadow wasn't going to stop. It would take one life tonight, and if he didn't sacrifice himself, it would take them all. "There has to be another way," Jane whispered desperately. "We can fight it. We can—" A cold wind swept through the house, and suddenly the shadows in the room shifted. The presence of the dark entity filled the space, growing heavier with each passing second. The voice of the shadow whispered through the air. "Time is up, Sam. One life, or all of them." Sam stood, his eyes locking with Jane's. "I'm not letting it take you or the kids," he said, his voice steady despite the fear. "This ends tonight." He grabbed the journal, knowing what he had to do. There, in the estate where it all began, Sam prepared to face the shadow and make the ultimate sacrifice to break the curse that had plagued his family for generations. As he stepped toward the growing darkness, the shadow took form once more, looming before him. Its eyes glowed with a malevolent light, and its smile twisted with malice. "I'm ready," Sam said, his voice unwavering. "Take me. But know this, I'm breaking your hold over my family tonight." The shadow's grin widened. "So be it." Sam closed his eyes, holding Jane's hand one last time as the darkness closed in around him, ready to claim its price. And then, with a final breath, Sam offered himself to the curse, knowing that by his sacrifice, his family would be freed from its grip forever. The moment Sam surrendered himself to the darkness, he felt a powerful rush, a surge of cold that enveloped him, pulling him into an abyss. As his consciousness faded, he sensed the weight of generations pressing upon him, the burden of his ancestors' choices crashing over him like a tidal wave. Memories, flickers of laughter, screams, and sorrow swirled around him, painting a picture of his family's cursed history. Then abruptly, he found himself standing in a vast, shadowy expanse. The air was thick with malevolence, and before him loomed the figure of the shadow, now more monstrous than ever, its form pulsating with dark energy. "You think this will free your family?" it taunted, its voice echoing like thunder. "You're merely fulfilling the terms of the bargain." "No," Sam replied, feeling a strange resolve fill him despite the terror. "I'm breaking the cycle. This ends with me." The shadow laughed, a sound that sent chills down his spine. "You believe your sacrifice will change anything? You are just one more name on a long list of victims." Sam clenched his fists, focusing on the journal in his mind. The truth he had read, the history of the curse. He needed to harness that knowledge, to use it against the darkness. The truth is your weakness. You thrive on fear and ignorance, but I know now, you can't have my family. With that, Sam summoned all his willpower, recalling the passages from Ambrose's journal. The final entry had mentioned the truth needing to be revealed to break the curse, and with that revelation, the power of the shadow could be diminished. "You're nothing without fear," Sam shouted into the void. "You're a parasite, feeding on the terror you create. But I won't give you that power anymore." As he spoke, the shadow's form began to waver, its dark tendrils flickering in and out of existence. The more he confronted it with truth, the weaker it became. "Stop! You're—" the shadow roared, but Sam pressed on. "You thrive on control, but your power lies only in the darkness. You can't touch what you don't understand. I choose light, I choose love, and I choose my family." Suddenly, the journal appeared in his hands, glowing with an ethereal light. It pulsed with warmth, illuminating the oppressive darkness around him. The shadow recoiled, hissing as the light spilled over its form, illuminating its grotesque features. "No!" it screeched, the darkness around it swirling violently. "You cannot defy me!" "I can and I will," Sam shouted, raising the journal above his head. "I will reveal the truth of this curse to everyone. I will show them that your power comes from fear, and that fear can be conquered." With a fierce thrust, he slammed the journal to the ground. The force of the impact sent shockwaves through the realm, and the pages began to turn, flipping rapidly as if a great wind swept through. Each word shone brightly, and the history of his family, their pain, their struggles, their triumphs, echoed in the void. As the journal glowed brighter, the shadow writhed in agony, its form beginning to dissolve. The truth of the curse, laid bare for all to see, robbed it of its power. Sam felt a surge of energy flow through him as the light expanded, pushing back the darkness. "You can't escape!" the shadow screeched as it faded. "You will always be mine." "No," Sam said, feeling the weight of generations lifting off his shoulders. You're nothing without my fear. With one final burst of light, Sam saw the shadow implode, the darkness collapsing in on itself. The last vestiges of its power shattered, revealing a bright horizon beyond. In that moment, Sam felt himself pulled away from the darkness, light enveloping him, and he closed his eyes, surrendering to its warmth. When he opened his eyes again, he was back in the old estate, the journal still clutched in his hands. But this time the air felt different, lighter. The oppressive weight had lifted and a warm glow illuminated the room. Sam? Jane's voice broke through the silence, filled with confusion and hope. He turned to find her standing at the door, her eyes wide with disbelief. You're back! Sam rushed to her, gathering her in his arms. I'm here, Jane. It's over. We broke the curse. Tears filled Jane's eyes as she held him tightly, relief flooding through her. But how? What happened? I faced the shadow, Sam explained, his heart racing with the aftermath of the encounter. I realized it thrived on fear. I had to confront it with the truth, our family's truth. And it worked. It's gone. Jane's breath hitched as she processed his words. Are the kids okay? Yeah, they're in the car. We need to get them and go home. This place, it doesn't hold any power over us anymore. As they left the estate, the dawn broke on the horizon, bathing the world in soft, golden light. The oppressive darkness had been replaced by the promise of a new day. Sam turned back for one last look at the old house. It was no longer a place of fear, but a testament to the strength of love and truth. Together they hurried to the car where their children waited, the warm glow of the morning sun spilling over them. Sam pulled them into a tight embrace, his heart full. Are we safe now, Dad? Their son asked, his voice small. Yes, buddy, we're safe, Sam replied, looking at his family. We'll always be safe, as long as we stand together. As they drove away from the estate, the sun rose higher, illuminating their path ahead. The shadows of the past had faded, leaving behind the promise of a brighter future. Share this video if you love God. Subscribe this channel